the assessment of today's situation is, I said, we are in a serious, the situation is very serious. The situation is very serious, is our understanding of the situations. Compared to today or on the previous day, on Monday I said that the release of radioactivities into the atmosphere was limited, and the reactor vessels are intact. But evidently, the situation has developed, and we are now in serious situation. That is my understanding. Regarding the TEPCO, I understand that TEPCO is doing everything that they can do, but in these events, we need to take time and look back and examine, and then we can provide assessment of what they have done is assessment on their efforts. There are too many elements that we do not know yet, so it is premature to pass judgment on their efforts.
You are planning to a very short trip to Japan. Could I ask you who exactly you are planning to see there, and what is the purpose, the exact purpose of your visit to Tokyo, and will you be going elsewhere?
Harm on the people's health. Let's take a look at the series of events that took place yesterday.
On the
south side of Fukushima Prefecture is Ibaraki Prefecture. People were anxious here as well. This is Nuclear Energy Safety Division of the Ibaraki Prefecture. Many people called in to ask questions. In Ibaraki Prefecture, since the earthquake, a monitoring of radioactive levels is being done on a 24-hour basis. This is a monitoring post. It measures the radiation level in the atmosphere. Measurements and recording is done every 2 seconds on radiation level and wind direction. There are 51 such monitoring posts within Ibaraki Prefecture. The information from the monitoring posts are gathered here at the Radiation Monitoring Center. 18 hours worth of records from these monitoring posts are brought here so that a trend could be seen. And since early yesterday morning, the radiation level has gone up in all monitoring posts. This person says that usually the level is about 50, so compared to that, it's 100 times higher now. It is not a level that may harm human health. However, it is a level that is higher than the normal level. If we compare data collected at different locations, you can see that the peak arrives at different timings. Let's take a look at when the monitoring posts recorded these high peaks. The peaks were seen at these yellow dotted areas. At 4:30 a.m., the first peaks were observed, and then after that, the areas that had the higher readings moved south. What was happening during this time? Assistant Professor at Kyoto University, Tetsuji Imanaka, is doing research on nuclear power plant accidents around the world. He says that it's just like smoke coming out of a smokestack and dispersing. He says that air containing radioactive substances comes out and spreads into the atmosphere. This is gaseous radiation or radioactive substances in particle form. These substances are usually gaseous or particles, and these would drift in the air, and depending on the wind speed and wind direction, they travel to different areas. The radioactive substances from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, how far did the radioactive substances travel? From early morning through midday, from the Fukushima prefecture to the Kanto area, northerly winds were blowing. And if we look at the time that the peak readings were registered and its time, we see that at 4 a.m. in Iwaki City of Fukushima prefecture, 40 kilometers away from the power plant, was 23.72 microsievert. It is high, but still half that amount that a person would be exposed to when taking chest x-rays. At 6 a.m., Ibaraki City reached its peak, and then in 9, Utsunomiya. And then, by midday, it reached Yokosuka in Kanagawa Prefecture. So the particles and substances traveled 200 kilometers or more over an 8-hour period. The radioactive substances that is carried by the wind. People in the evacuation shelters are also very worried about this situation. This is a shelter located about 40 kilometers away from the nuclear power plant. People are being tested to make sure that no radioactive substances are adhering to their clothes or skin. No abnormal readings were found, but still the residents are very anxious and worried. This woman says that nobody is telling them what to do, and that's the concern that everybody has. Will there be health impacts on the people who have evacuated? Dr. Masao Tomonaga has been treating radiation sickness over a long time. He says that because radiation cannot be seen, people are worried. Microsievert is a very low amount, but some amounts, minimal amounts, could have been inhaled and may have gone into the people's body. However, it is very minimal, therefore it will not immediately harm people's health.
And now we are joined by Professor Masaharu Hoshi of Hiroshima University, who is an expert on radiation sickness. Thank you for joining us. As we have seen in the video, these radioactive substances, the spread of these substances. Well, Professor Hoshi, how do you observe this situation? Well, yes, radioactive substances, they spread in the form of either gas or particles, and they are carried by the wind, and they disperse in this process. So they become leaner and are diluted and yet spread. But looking at the measurements so far, we say that the numbers recorded at the nuclear reactor and 30 kilometers, it's 1,000 over 1, 1 over 1,000, and therefore this radius of 30 kilometers. Well, in this area, we think the reading is quite low. Now, and therefore, looking at this radiation level, we do not think that this has any immediate impact on human health. And looking at these numbers, you don't think that this is harmful to the human health. But the way the radioactive substances is spreading does it spread close to the ground, or does it go up into the high into the air? Well, it really depends on the case, but if it carries heat, it'll be high and spread. And in that case, but I think in this case, it's following the surface of the ground. Looking at this spreading pattern, is there anything else that you could detect from here? Well, I think this is as of yesterday, but still looking at these numbers. The further away, the lower the number. Meaning that, yes, the radioactive substances are being carried by the wind, but they are being dispersed and the numbers are getting smaller. Yes. And Mr. Iwamoto, how do you observe this? Well, yes, as Professor Hoshi has rightly stated, we do not believe that this is a level which will have an impact on human health. But this is in the order of microsievert. It's very complicated. There's millisievert and microsievert. It's very complicated. But millisievert is 1,000 folds that of microsievert. At the Fukushima Daiichi site, the reading here, the highest was 400 millisievert. 400 millisievert. Well, if you were to calculate this, this is 400,000 microsievert. And in these different locations, looking at the numbers, you'd see 5.19 or less than 1, meaning that it is diluted to quite an extent as it gets further away from the nuclear plant. Now, what impact does this have? Well, this is our concern, yes, but just to give you an idea here, well, this is in the order of microsievert. Between 7 million to 10 million would be fatal. And 12 years ago, at the Tokai, the critical accident, it was between 6 million to 20 million microsievert. There was that level of exposure causing fatality. Now, so 6,900 is a CT scan, one-time CT scan, and the natural exposure is 2,400 per annum. Well, and what we have been explaining, the milli and microsievert is per hour. What I've been saying is per hour. If you were to in that location, you would be exposed to that much radiation, and this is 50 for your breast X-ray. And we were talking about 1 or 0 point something, meaning that the impact is not, well, it is not to the level that it will have an impact on the human health.
Professor Hoshi, the extent that the radioactive substances has traveled, and also the figures that we've just heard. What are the other things that you are focusing on from a perspective of a researcher? Well, I have gone to many accident sites for investigation and survey. The next problem would be the types of radioactive material. So, radioactive material is not just one thing. So, what are these elements? And the radiation can differ, but we can think about noble gas and iodine, radiative iodine, cesium. These are the major things that we're looking at. Well, we haven't heard about the actual materials or what kind of elements we are talking about. Well, yes, I believe iodine is involved here, but how much has that been spread? We don't have any information about that. So in order to protect ourselves, the way we protect ourselves will differ depending on the element. I see. So depending on the substance, what we have to do will change. Yes. So information like that is something we would like to ask to be disclosed. That is really important.
And Mr. Iwamoto? Well, yes, information is not fully provided.
The area. You're now looking at the live footage of the press conference or the news conference from the Tokyo Electric Company officials.
We had some items on the list that we had responded that we will have an official response to on the 17th. As for the envisioned accidents, of severe accidents, as of the 17th, we would like to get back to you on an answer. As for the spent fuel,